Hello, I hope you're well. It is Laz Lost Wolf. It's been a week since I've streamed, so I've forgotten everything. Uh, One of the cardinal things I forgot was to turn on my chat software so I can see what's going on, which was done, and here we are. Anyway, so in the intervening week, the thing that I got done was I cleaned up all of um, my highlights. They're gone. There's just nothing to see on my page anymore. The only thing that will be there for a while is the SVOD, because what we're going to start doing is we're going to implement a new process. And the new process is that we're going to be playing a game. We'll have the one highlight from the game, and then I'll move it off of Twitch completely. And we'll start moving that over to somewhere else so that you can watch it. Um, we're going to move the modern highlights almost the day after we have played that specific session. So if you miss a session, there will be about a 24-hour gap. Because, from my understanding, there used to be a 48-hour gap on Twitch, but now the gap is 24 hours, I think. I've got to go and read up on that, but I haven't in a while. So from tomorrow, I'm going to start just automating the process of every time a VOD is a day old. We'll just upload it to YouTube and go from there. Um, so I thought about this a lot. I battled with what to play next. Uh, I've got most of the stuff built out for the new thing that we're gonna do, but I don't have it quite finished because the sudden project of downloading all of the highlights was a massive project, and I didn't realize how big it was gonna be. And I got finished with it last night, and that means that I spent like almost 2 weeks functionally chained to the computer just downloading data. It's subsumed one of my hard drives. And I've got to upload it somewhere. I'm just going to probably upload to YouTube, which makes the most sense. But because of that, one of the upshot things of doing that was that my connection was always going, and I thought about like uploading while I was downloading. So I thought about streaming while I was downloading, and that just didn't seem like a super good idea, so I didn't do it. And that is why it's been about a week. We are going to be playing Ultima 4. Now, I've got to warn you before we start playing Ultima 4 that I've not played this game since 1986. When I took you through Ultima's Naught 1, 2, and 3, it was because I played them in recent memory, and I kind of knew what I was doing. In Ultima 4, I kind of understand the shape of what we're going to do, because I played it very briefly when I was not into RPGs, but the game itself is gonna be essentially new to me because like the last time I played this game was literally 1986 or 1987, and I don't remember a thing about it other than you need to be truthful and sometimes you need to let people flee. Those are the two things I remember. But yeah, let's start by getting ourselves all set up with um, our housekeeping, and then we'll get going here. So give me a minute. Okay, let's start actually housekeeping. Uh, Housekeeping. Oh, why am I not on the right page? Oh my god, everything is broken. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's do the housekeeping. Housekeeping. Okay, housekeeping mostly done. Let's do this. And then you can talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so we're at Ultima 4. I envisioned this as a 3-year project in which we play like 3 Ultimas a year so I don't burn out. When we last left you, so there's a couple of strands that we can talk about when we talk about Ultima 4. I'm going to show you manuals and boxes in a second, but I want to sort of, before we do anything else, uh, in these streams I don't always like setting the scene and telling you stories about how things used to be, because I want us to experience the games, and I want us to experience the games from a perspective of, in most of the cases, we're driving home in our car, we've just bought the box, we are opening the box, and we're looking through the goodies, and we're going to play the game. I guide you through them because sometimes I know what I'm doing, but most of the time I just don't always. But in this case, the history of what's going on is super important, and I do need to talk about what's going on. So, we start with... I guess we need to start at Ultima 0 before we pick up with Ultima 3. We start with Ultima 0, and in this situation, Richard Garriott is a young man. He has this idea that he is going to make a go of making video games. His parents don't like this idea. They're not very into the idea because they think that he should have a stable job, and they, at this point, kind of think that video games are going to be a fact, I guess. And they don't want him to ruin his early life over what is essentially just a thing that he might dip into that might explode and then might not work out. And that's almost kind of what happens, right? So in the first couple of years of the video game market being a market, the video game crash of 83 comes along, and it takes away lots of studios. Like, lots of studios just die in a wave of the video game crash. At this point, so Ultima Naught comes out, Ultima 1 comes out, Ultima 2 comes out. Ultima 2 is a thing that he sets up as a joint venture with Sierra Online. Sierra don't pay him. And I think some of why Sierra don't pay him, I mean, I think that there was just recalcitrance going on back and forth between Sierra and Ken Williams. Ken Williams wanted a game that he could ship for December, and so the amount of time that Origin has to work on Ultima 2 is not enough. And we can see that in the finished product, right? Because he wants to put these planets into the game, and he wants to make them walkable and have stuff in them, but he can't. So there's this clash between Ken Williams and Richard Garriott, and they're two very big, very fiery men. So when you put them in the room, you probably get arguments. And then there's this clash. And the ultimate upshot of the clash is that Sierra doesn't ultimately pay a lot of the balls for Ultima 2, and Richard gets understandably upset. He put a lot of time and effort into this game. Sierra promised to publish it. They didn't do squat about much of it, and then he just decided, well, he's going to take his cart and walk away. So he makes Ultima 3. Ultima 3 is, but by the standards of the time, like a rousing success-ish. It's a fairly good and very competent... Like, if I had to tell you play any early Ultima, I'd say play Ultima 3, right? Because it's a fairly good, fairly competent Ultima, and it's also a fairly good, fairly competent RPG for the time. There's jank in it, because, of course, but we can see the beginnings of design happening in Ultima 3. And I guess this is where we need to start. So we see this beginning of this design in Ultima 3 that moves into this idea of party-based combat, that moves into this idea of there's multiple systems that are layered on top of the game that all work together to make the game function. And one of the things that I think that is worth starting to talk about when we talk about Ultima 4. If you remember, one of the things I said when we were reading the manual for Ultima 3 was there was this line, and I said, please remember this because we're going to come back around to this. And the line, and I wanted to bring it up here so we can see it together. I just need to find the line. Where's the line? Oh god. I'm gonna have to actually look at the whole of the manual because the manual I have is not actually searchable. Let's see if I can find a all text manual. Oh. I just want an all text manual because there's one specific line that I want to read to you that's very important. Okay, let me just see if I can find it. Where is it? I want to say that it was in the grocery. There's the weapon shop. I'm gonna show you, actually, let me just show you what I'm looking at. Because that way you can be amused while I'm amused. Let's see if this works. It works. Hey, I'm surprised. Okay, so I am looking at the Ultima 3 manual. Where is it? Merchants. I think it's here. Ah, here. Okay, so this is very, very important, this line here. It's so important that I'm going to read out the whole thing. We start off with citizens, and then we have this thing, merchants here. And this is the Ultima 3 manual, and in this manual it says, and they're very proud of it, the mainstay of society's prosperity. They operate the shops in town to the benefit of all. Some are not very clever, and if a sharp thief is in that party, then a chest or two might be stolen from under the merchant's nose. If that thief is caught stealing, the entire town guard will assault thee. They're quite proud of the fact that you can steal, because they make sure that they mention it in the actual manual for Ultima 3. And this is the starting off point for Ultima 3. So one of the things that happens like in the background, hey Great Baby Gamer, it's good to see you, hope you're doing well. One of the things that happens in the back, because this is like 1984 now, one of the things that happens in the background is that Richard starts getting mail from people who played his games, and most of them are like, "Oh, this is super awesome." But we've discovered that the only way to actually get ahead in Ultima 3 is to steal things, right? And while you wrote that in the manual, the intent was never for you to be an awful human and to steal the land blind, because that's basically what people do. They would go like into the because you could do this in one, you could go into the castles and you could steal and you could get food. They would go into places where you could grab valuables, they would steal those and then they'd make off with them and use them, right? In Ultima 3, because food is such a bugbear, most people would steal food to get ahead. That's just how they would play the game. We didn't play it like that because I don't believe in playing like that, but it's possible and you can do it. And so Richard gets these messages from these people, and he's like, he has this existential crisis. You got to understand, right, that at the release of Ultima 3, Richard's not very old. I think that when we did the math, we discovered that he was 22 when he made Ultima 3 itself. And so maybe 2 years go by, and now we're at Ultima 4, so he's 24. So he has this existential crisis about, wait a second, everyone who plays my game turns awful. And this is one of the strands that glues Ultima 3 to Ultima 4 quite heavily. and you'll see why the minute we start looking at the packaging. He decides, oh no, wait a second. What he needs to do is correct this behavior in all of his players somehow. And the way he decides to correct this abhorrent behavior is that he decides to write a game in which there is no evil bad guy. And there's nothing like that in this game. There's a quest for becoming an avatar, and this idea is multifaceted. It runs in several ways. One of the ways, obviously, is that an avatar is a force for good, right? If you look at some religions, they will use the word avatar like that. But the other way is that when you think about it, when you're playing a video game, you're embodying the spirit of the character. You are playing an avatar on a screen. And so I think that at 24, he must have been very proud of himself for making these many connections to this one thing. And he ran with that idea. So um, that's the first place we have to start talking about Ultima 4. The next place we have to start talking about Ultima 4 specifically is as Arjun's star rises, because it is on the ascent at this point. The breakdown of Ultima 8 hasn't happened. The sale to EA hasn't happened. And the subsequent disaster that is Ultima 9 hasn't happened. As Arjun's star is ascending, it means that Richard can play with ideas. He has the time and he has the money, and he has the teams at his disposal that allow him to make these much bigger, more intricate, more thoughtful games. And so we'll see that in the same way that Ultima's 0 to 1, turn 3 kind of loosely tied together because they're all glued together by this idea of the Age of Darkness. Ultima's 4, 5, and 6 are loosely tied together in this series called the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment deals with primal good on like a spiritual level. And the way it deals with it is in giving you ideals to work towards as the avatar. And then in subsequent games, it will twist those ideals ever so slightly. So in Ultima 4, you get the purest version of the ideals. In Ultima 5, this isn't a spoiler because we'll see this immediately as soon as Ultima 5 starts. You get a twisted version of the ideals, and then in Ultima 6, they twist them again. So there's lots of little strands to it. Look at Ultima 4 from. And I think that it's an interesting game that's the idea of it's just never been replicated ever again. We've learned that video game players don't have the patience or the time really for philosophy, unfortunately, unless it's philosophy in small doses and with particular games. Like I'd argue that the ongoing strand of this, the most recent ongoing strand of this particular game, is probably Disco Elysium, because Disco Elysium is about ideas and philosophies and less about being an RPG, right? So that's kind of what's going on here. So the thing about all of this is that Arjun are ascendant, and so Arjun is able to make multiple games at the same time now. They're in a position, they're not in a uh, they're not in a world dominating position yet, but they're getting there because one of the things that we'll see when we look at the box is it's very interesting. They went out of their way to have Zero publish Ultima 2. It didn't work out. So when they started to publish in the UK, they had to find a new publishing partner. And they picked Microprose, which was bigger than them at this point, which is kind of funny. But there's a lot of intricacy attached to the idea of the design for Ultima 4. It doesn't always follow through on that intricacy, but it's there. But the thing is, I wanted to bring you into this idea that Ultima 3 is ultimately Ultima 4, sorry, is a reaction to Ultima 3. And then Ultimas 4, 5, and 6 are this codified, unified idea of, all right, if we have these ideals, what happens when we break these ideals? And so they're sort of a circular unit within each other. Okay, so we're driving home in our car. We've got the box. I didn't manage to find good cohesive scans of all of the box because this game went through various iterations. But let's start with the box that we can see on the eve of the first evening that this game is sold, and we've got out, we've bought it. I'm going to show you the PC box first, and then I'm going to show you the UK PC box because they're significantly different. But let me get that started up very quickly. That there is sort of the front cover. Let me start with. Let me get this up and going. So yeah, there's a couple of things that are happening immediately in this cover that are slightly different from the third box. In the third box, what we had was this very stylized font, and we had Exodus, and Exodus was a big, scary looking thing. We can immediately see that like the sky is immediately sort of prettier, and we've got this Ankh. And this Ankh is so important to Ultima. It's going to come back again and again and again and again in various guises. But the Ankh it's become, it will become symbolic with the Ultima franchise as a whole. But we've got here Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, and we've got Bylord British. And then for the first time, we kind of see what the Avatar looks like. There will be iterations on the sky through 4, 5, and 6. And then in 6, they finally land on a design that they like, and that sort of sticks. But yeah, he's a brown haired guy who's wearing this flowing robe, and he's casting what looks like a magic spell, I guess. It's all very kind of religious, which is a weird thing to talk about in a video game. But when we see kind of what's going on inside of the design of this game, we will understand why this is like this. From Origin comes the long-awaited sequel to the award-winning Ultima 3. Now, they're saying long-awaited. We talked about how in the gap between Ultima 2 and Ultima 3, Richard got himself a mentor and taught himself, because he'd been running mostly BASIC as a programming language with like light calls to assembler. He taught himself, or he not he taught himself, he got a mentor that taught him assembler, and he went heavily into assembler to make this specific game. And that meant that assembler is hard, right? I'm just going to tell you up front now, as a person who's programmed in assembler, unless you kind of know what you're doing, unless you're thinking about it all the time, assembler is hard. And he has to make this very big design work within the confines of a bunch of 8-bit machines. And that's a number that we'll see a lot. 8 is repeated very often in this game. And 8 is significant because 8 is the biggest number of bits that an 8-bit machine can handle. So what that means ultimately, for example, it sounds weird to talk about it like this, but the biggest number that you can like rational integer number that you can have in an 8-bit machine is 255, because they start counting at 0. It would be 256 if you started counting at 1. But because these numbers are so small, there are things that have to happen in order to make things like the bread work. The food work, or the coin work, or that kind of thing. Because you have to have 9999, and we saw that in Ultima 3, one of the things that was problematic was that you could get buffer underflows, where if you had too much money, it would reset, and now you'd be at a negative number. So it takes a long time to get from from Ultima 3 to Ultima 4. It's almost 2 years. I want to say that the development time was 18 months. And for the Ultima crowd who were waiting for this game, that was a long time. And that's why they have this um, long awaited sequel. And then we have Origin Systems Incorporated. This is the front of the box. The back of the box is funny because it takes this idea that we saw in Ultima 2, runs with it and makes it worse. So, and Ultima 3. So this is the back of the box. I I want to actually zoom out just so I can show you. There's no screenshots. Still not. We're in Ultima 3 and there's Ultima 4 and there's no screenshots. Prepare yourself for a grand adventure. Ultima 4. 16 times larger than Ultima 3. So this claim is strictly true. If you take the Ultima 3 map and you multiply it by 16, because that map is only 256 squares by 256 squares, basically, you get this map, which is something like 4096 by 4096. Again, this is just a... So, in the 8-bit era, we fetishize this idea of 8 a lot because 8 goes into everything. So if you take 8 by 8, you get 64. If you take 64 by 64, you get another funny computer number, which is 4096. And that's the size of the map in Ultima 4 when you draw it out pixel by pixel. You get a 4096 sized grid. So 8 is very important to this specific game. So that's why they're talking about 16 times larger, because again, 8 times 2 is 16. Is a milestone in computer gaming. Sorry, there's a full stop there. This is very difficult to read because it's picked very awful colors. This yellow should never be on this white. Lord British has produced a game to challenge not only your physical and mental skills, but the true fabric of your character. Arguably true. I think that for a certain subset of people, and I've read the entries by the CRPG addict. He was about the right age for this game to hit him because he was 12 or 13 when this game came out. And so this is a very big game from a philosophical perspective if you're that young, because it deals with all these ideas that you don't normally think about when you're 12 or 13. And so from that perspective, I think you can safely say that sure, Richard Garriott, who's double the CRPG addict's age at this point, is making a point to younger people about, oh, philosophically, you should be thinking about these specific ideas and putting them into practice. And I think for those people, this is a game that would matter character-wise. I think that as you get older, unfortunately, you can sort of see flaws in the system that he set up, but we'll talk about that when we get to what he set up. The evil triad of Mundane Minix and the Hellspawn Exodus have been vanquished, and a peace reigns throughout the land of Britannia. Now notice we've gone from Caesarea to Britannia. We used to be in Caesarea in Ultima 3, but now we're in Britannia. One of the things that is going to happen is that the game is gonna retcon itself again, because that just is how we do in Ultima Land. Britannia is important because this is a setup for the future. The landmass that we will always go to from now on, except once, will always be Britannia. There's an exception to all these rules all of the time, everywhere. Evil, yet evil yet abounds. I couldn't read that for a minute. But in isolated pockets and in the hearts of men, a new age awaits the coming of one who can conquer evil on all frontiers through the mastery of both magic and the use of force. Demons, dragons, and long-dead wizards still plague the countryside and must be destroyed. The seeker on the path of the Avatar will face hostile groups composed of mixed enemy types. This is new for Ultima. They got it on the back of the box here because it matters so much. In Ultima 3, when you fought a group, it was just one lot of people. In Ultima 4, I want to tell you that it's two lots of people. It's not more, but it is at least two sometimes. Um, and will survive such encounters only by strategic use of weapons and terrain. Um, Earthly victories over seemingly impossible odds lead to the final conflict, where the ultimate challenge, the self, awaits. This, I want to tell you that this copy is very cool, this idea that he set up here. And it's cool because we never see this again, this idea that you fight yourself or something like it. That's going to come at the end of this game. And he just plops that right to the copy of the back of the box. It's very neat. Two full game discs, front and back. Full conversations with hundreds of characters. We will see that this is not quite true. You will start with a significant number of keywords. You'll have to keep track of the keywords that you know. And the keywords are what kind of guide you through conversations. These conversations of by the time they're super good, for the time they're super good. By the time we get to even 5 or 6 years later, we're doing much better conversations because we have like conversation trees and that sort of thing, and so we're able to have conversations that sort of make sense. In this game, the way you start a conversation is you say name, and then the person tells you their name, and then you ask for their job, and then they tell you what their job is. And then through further conversations like that, like when someone tells you, oh, I'm a mage, you can ask them about mage, and then they'll tell you something canned about being a mage. And that will lead you through kind of what you have to do to solve this game. Multiple range weapons, unified. I think this is unified magic system of unmatched subtlety. Hmm. Oh yes, I think that is an F. I was reading it as an E, but it's an F. Unified magic system of unmatched subtlety. So again, this is an important point to bring up. In Ultima 3, when you started the game, there were two spellbooks, one for magic users, one for priests. That's just gone now. And it won't ever come back, by the way. For the rest of the games that we're going to see going forward, all the spells are crammed into one spellbook. Dozens of combat screens, hundreds of individually designed dungeon chambers. I guess this is them patting themselves on the back and is kind of true. There's a good thing that's going to happen in this game that I like a lot, in that previously all the dungeons had been in 2 and 1 and so on, they've been random. In 3, they stopped being random, but they were third person. I think in this one they start being sorry, the dungeons in Naught 1, 2, and 3 were for first person with 3D graphics. I think these are top down, which is going to make my life a lot easier. I don't remember. Okay, so dozens of unique shops to explore. I am dubious of this claim, but okay. And then we've got their, their funny things about copyright and so on here. So, okay, that's the back of this is the MS-DOS box. This is the US release of the MS-DOS box. So let's look at the UK version. Much better. Look at this. Actual screens. Although, I don't know if these are the MS-DOS screens. Yeah, because they've already got this disclaimer here. Screenshots may vary. So it could be that this is CGA. It could be that this is EGA. But it might also be that this is like the Atari 2 screenshot or a Commodore 64 screenshot or whatever, because at that point they didn't really tell you what they were showing you on the back of the box. You just had to kind of know. Uh, and the copy here is slightly different. With the ruthless triad of evil finally vanquished, peace reigns once more throughout Britannia. Evil only abounds in isolated pockets and in the hearts of men. They must have decided that this was punchier because they yanked it from the middle and put it at the top. A perfect mortal is now sought to lead the realm into a golden age. This then is your quest. Become an avatar. And this was not in the other version of the text at all. This is pretty cool. They're like reacting to what worked and what didn't work in the other version of the box. Galar Dragon's here, the doctor is in. The doctor is in. Hello, Dr. Yasman. I appreciate the raid. Hi. How are you all doing? Yes, raid. Yes, raid. The doctor is in. I appreciate you all so much. Hi. The follows are anonymous, but I appreciate that you're doing that. Thank you so much. Hi. Okay, so while all this chaos is happening, let me tell you about myself. Hey, Goliath Dragon says, hey friends. Hello. I am Lost Wolf. I play kind of what my heart desires, more or less. We usually pick a theme and then we stick to the theme. This year we haven't gotten to the theme yet, but when we do arrive, oh boy, it's going to be a bit much, I think. But Dr. Yasman says, love of other dragon. I'm an ideal dragon. Oh, it's good to meet you, ideal dragon. When I set up like my whole thing, they were like, what do you want your dragon name to be? So I said, well, I'll just be Lost Wolf Dragon. And I went, okay, cool. So I am Lost Wolf. I play a sort of what my heart desires, as I say, but we have themes, and the themes last year were card games mostly, and then other stuff that I played in between. And then before that, the theme was all sort of talking animal games where there was an animal protagonist and an animal world, and we played it. That was you as animal. I have gone on a bit of a bender at playing DOS games since December, mainly just because I haven't been able to figure out what to play. And one of the things I talked about at the beginning of starting Ultima, because we started playing Ultima Zero last year, is that I wanted to kind of play the nine mainline Ultimas and then maybe do some of the others. But it's a big project and I wanted to spread it over 3 years so I don't burn myself out. Dr. Yasman says, but a Dr. Yasman trivia. I originally wanted Ideals Dragon, but Ideals seemed more layered in meaning. I like it. That's pretty cool. Good. Dr. Yasman says, good project. I don't know. We'll see. I might hate how long Ultima 7 is, because Ultima 7 has got these layers of stuff. You play through Ultima 7, and then you have to play, uh, what is it? Oh, I've forgotten. But there's two DLCs on top of that. And so it's a very long game. Galar Dragon says you won't regret it if you choose to play the Worlds and Underworlds too. Love them. Yeah, I do want to think about those. Dr. Asman says I stream work on my D-Make of Ultima 8 sometimes. That's my main Ultima related streaming this last year. Oh, that's very cool. What are you demaking it to? Galar Dragon says it took me 11.5 years to play all the Ultimas, so it's quite a quest for sure. Yeah, I bet. But you were probably playing them sort of as they came out. I tried that, but I wasn't very good at RPGs. So I grew to like move away. Dr. Asman says an Ultima 7 Exalt engine. Oh, that's very cool. Okay, so let me give you a shout out. Dr. Yasman. There you go. What were you doing? You came to us. What were you doing? You were playing retro. Okay, cool. Thanks for the shout out. I appreciate it. No problem. Because unfortunately, retro is very loose. Twitch hasn't got its act together yet and said, oh, you're playing retro. What game are you playing? So if you'd like to tell us what you were doing, that'd be great. Okay, so let's read this copy. All right. I was doing my interactive Zelda shuffler. 5 Zelda games, to punishment games, and you can change the game I'm playing at any time. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Which Zeldas were you playing? Cloud Dragon says, not quite. It was May 1999 when I decided to play them all in a row in advance of U9 coming out. I didn't quite make it in time. No, yeah. Starting from, I mean, not, don't get me wrong, like Note 1, 2, and 3 are pretty, are quick-ish, but then they slow down a lot. After that, it gets, they get to be a little bit more involved. Cloud Dragon says, oh, sure, okay. So let me carry on reading this copy. Ultima 4 sets new standards in fantasy role-playing adventures, journey through terrain of infinite proportions. It's not infinite, but it will probably wrap. Conversing with characters on hundreds of topics, unravel the mysteries of a superior magic system. But beware of demons, dragons, and long-dead wizards. This copy is actually a little bit more punchy than the other copy that we read. Encounters with parties of mixed enemy types test your strategic abilities. Earthly victories over seemingly impossible odds lead to the final conflict or the ultimate challenge. The self awaits. There's no three dots at the end. They've lost their spirit. Cloud Dragon says, to be fair, in 2005 I played some Sierra games, but most of that time, and Ultima was my main game. That's pretty cool. Sierra's worth pursuing to a limited degree. Kagi says, I've been watching Ultima 5. Ultima 5 is very cool. Dr. Yasman says, Oracle of Seasons, Link's Awakening, Minish Cap, Links to the Past Redux, Ultra GP with patches, and All Hallows Eve. Halloween themed whole new Zelda that was a mod of Ultra GP. That's pretty cool, because those are all, so when people talk about Zelda, they normally talk about, Oot, Ocarina of Time, and then everyone just either talks about Oot or they talk about the more modern ones, right? So they're talking about Breath of the Wild and that kind of thing, and then people just don't talk about the library of other Zelda games unless they're talking about Zelda One. They don't talk about the library of other Zelda games, so it's cool that you're playing sort of underrated Zeldas there. The punishment games of Superman 64. Oh, I'm so sorry. Battletoads on NES. You can probably beat Battletoads on NES, you just have to fight with it, but Superman 64 is going to be very hard going. Dr. Galore Dragon says, everyone follow Yes too, he's wonderful. Yeah, I visited one of his streams. I do mean to go back at some point because he's very awesome. Dr. Yasman says, Ultima 5 rules. And then Galore says, it was my first and favorite Ultima, to be honest. Yeah, it's a very Ultima 5 is a very we're gonna see that this is gonna start happening in Ultima 4. Ultima 4 is the beginning of these games getting super very open ended, and there's a lot that you can just explore. And Ultima 5 is probably the pinnacle of that sort of exploration. Um, Dr. Yasman says the people deigned to allow me to use save states in Battletoads, so it's brutal, but I can get through it. Yeah, that's probably the best way to play Battletoads, actually. It's just not to sweat it, just to use save states. Prepare yourself for the grand adventure. I love this. This is like a checklist. All you need is little check marks. A milestone in computer gaming. I would argue that this is true, and they can pat themselves on the back. Even by the time that this game came out and the reviews started coming out, people noticed that it was significantly different, and they noticed what it was, and they knew that it was going to be historically important, and so it was. Full interactive dialogue. We've argued about this. Magic system of unmatched subtlety. I will argue about this when we encounter it because it's not really subtle. There's dumb steps that you have to take to get magic to work, and that's about the subtlety that they're talking about here. Hundreds of individually designed dungeon chambers, greatly enhanced graphics, dozens of combat scenes, 100 to 200 hours of playing time. This is inflated. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, maybe we are talking about 100 to 200 hours of playing time. But if you kind of know what you're doing, it's a game that you can beat fairly quickly once you kind of understand the shape of the game. The other thing that I want to do is point out that this 100 to 200 hours of playing time is kind of standard for this sort of era of RPG. They would pat themselves on the back and say, oh, you'll be playing this forever. No one wants to play a game forever. Don't do that. What are you doing, Lord British? Got a flavor text sells me. Yeah, it does. It's very good. And then we've got these. Oh, here we go. They're actually kind of telling us Commodore 64, Amiga, Atari, um, and ST, Apple, IBM, Tandy, Amstrad, CPC, Spectrum, and Spectrum Plus are registered trademarks of Commodore Electronics Limited, Commodore Amiga Inc., Atari Inc., Apple Computer Inc., and National Business Machines Inc., Tandy Corp., and Amstrad Computers, respectively. And the reason they're adding this at the bottom, by the way, is because you don't know which screenshots these are from. It could be that these are any of those computers. Okay, I think that we're good. Oh, yeah, I also wanted to point out this at the bottom over here, because this is so important. We saw in Ultima 2 that Sierra had a venture with Origin and it didn't work out. So now Origin in the UK are trying to like get their stuff done through Microprose. Microprose at this point is bigger than them, and so it makes sense to have Microprose be Origin's publisher in the UK. Okay, let's start looking at a manual. Uh, Canary says 47 minutes and 5 seconds with the current speed run times. Yeah. So like if you I mean I'm not a speedrunner, but the point that I want to make is that if you kind of know what you're doing, it's not 100 hours, right? If you know what you're doing, maybe you're going to spend, if you have played it once before, maybe 15 to 20 hours. This 100-hour time is inflationary, and they're counting on you to get stuck somewhere when they talk about the 100 to 200 hours playing time. They shouldn't be patting themselves on the back, and it makes me angry that they do. Galar Dragon says, I've got a look, but loving us. Take care. No problem. Thank you. It's good to see you here, Galar. Okay, so let's open the box. Let's get into what's inside the box. There's a whole bunch of things in the box. I'm not necessarily going to look at the manual immediately, but we will get there because there's two separate and different manuals, and we need to actually pay attention to both of them. But the thing that I think is most interesting to look at first inside the box is this. A lot of dragons is more value for your money. Yeah, 100%. This is the Ankh, right? And original copies of this game, when you bought them, almost all had Ankh. I'm not going to say all of them did because, packaging and nonsense. But 99% of the time, if you open the box, this is what you would get. And so there's this thing that's starting to happen with every Ultima that we'll see subsequently up until, I think, Ultima 9. But there's always something in the box to connect you to the game. And the anchor is super important here because the anchor is sort of the symbol of the avatar. So they picked the right symbology and they picked the right thing to create as sort of a feeling that would tie you to the game. And I think that this is so strategically awesome that they did this because everyone who comes into contact with this game in its original form, as in with the box that they opened up, that they got new, would have had this anchor, and it would have been a reminder, like a non-static, non-computer game reminder of this interesting and intriguing game that they had played and probably remembered. So there we go. Let's get rid of this. I'm going to show you the reference card very quickly, only because this is quick and easy and I can just take you through it very quickly. So in Ultima 3, we had this marvelous kind of hand-drawn art, and it comes back here again. This reference card is kind of what's going to guide us through playing the game because it's going to have the cheat sheet for things like the key presses. Player reference card by Lord British, IBM version, conversions by James and Arts Dalen. So all these games, up to a point, Ultima 5, were written with the Apple II in mind. And so Lord Richard Garriott, would start by writing spec for the Apple II, and then what he would do is, because at this point Ultima selling gangbusters, they would have to have conversions to other machines. And we'll learn much later, I'm not going to talk about it now, we'll probably talk about it at the end, that there are conversions to console. And when they make these conversions to console, or to lesser machines, more importantly, they have to sacrifice something along the way, almost always. And so the Apple II version is often regarded as the sort of the standard by which all the others end up being measured. Now this stops being true at Ultima 6, because at Ultima 5, the Apple II is starting to be a machine that's sort of long in the tooth. And the things that they want to be able to do with Ultima, they just can't do, and they start needing to reach for 16-bit architecture, and so they start going to the IBM as a result. And that becomes the de facto standard version from that point onward. So you can see here, this is just literally a reference. It's just some of the stuff we already know. We've got attack, we got board, we've got cast, we've got descend, we've got enter, we got fire, we got get chest, which is G. Now this is going to be a little bit different, because previously we did unlock first and then get. We got hold up and camp. This is new this year. Set up camp to rest and recover from thy wounds. Note this command may only be used successfully with a limited frequency. Ignite a torch, that's cool, we've seen that before. Jimmy a lock. Sure, because we'll get lockpicks in this particular game. We got climb, which is still okay. We got locate position, requires a special item. This is gonna, I believe, I want to say that I'm remembering this correctly. It will give you an XY coordinate, and that's kind of useful, because once we know kind of where the tip of the game is, the 0, position, we can start working out where things are around that. Mixed reagents. This is important. This is new. We are going to encounter the magic system, and when we encounter the magic system, we're going to see that this is a super important command, because it takes the things that you have to make magic and it slews them together to make a mixture that we can then use. Prepare material components of a spell for later use. Note, thou must have reagents mixed ahead of time in order to cast any spells. When asked reagent, type the letter corresponding to the reagents desired, and then type return when thou wishes to mix them. New order exchanges the position of two players indicated within thy party, except for player 1, for thou must lead the party. This is also new, and this is actually going to be a little bit cumbersome. I don't know why they implemented this. SSI forever had problems with big parties and party size and moving people around, and that's going to infect this game as well. And in fact, it's going to infect every Ultima that we play past this point. Open door, period gem, quit and save, ready weapon, search, talk, use. Use is new. It's use an item that is thou hast found during play by means of a search command. So we'll discover that there are things that we can find in the world that we can just put into our backpack, but that are not things like reagents or weapons or whatever. And those become the solution to puzzles that we're going to encounter along the way. We got ready and then where again. We got exit, get out of a craft, and then yell, giddy up or whoa to speed up or slow down my horse. That's also new. Yell used to be more general, used to be able to yell anything at the command line, but now there's giddy up or whoa to speed up and slow down horses. Z is still stats. Special note, talking to people found in the game is one of the most important features of Ultima 4 to master. It is almost impossible to solve their quests without talking to virtually all people in each town. Each person with whom thou dost talk is capable of full conversation. Not true, but okay. They can be asked about their name, job, and health. Okay, so this sets up what I was talking about. There are 3 basic primary questions that you need to ask everyone to get them going. Name and job and health give you those hints to further conversation topics. Thou may look again at the visual description. From this information thou shouldst be able to discern what else they might know, hinted at directly by use of the precise words in a conversation. For example, if thou were to ask Dupre about his job, and he were to respond, I am hunting gremlins, you can then probably ask about hunting, and you can probably ask about gremlins. Thou might think to ask him about hunting or gremlins, about either of which he might offer some insight. Each of these people must ask thee a question as well. Be sure to answer the question honestly. So I want to stress this so hard. People are going to constantly ask us, are you the avatar? And then you've got to say no, because you're not the avatar yet. For dishonesty will be remembered and not reflect well upon thee for the rest of the game. Often thou shalt not know what to ask a townsperson until thou hast been told by another, e.g., Iola the Bard might tell thee to ask Shimino the Ranger about swords. Even if thou hadst met Shimino earlier, thou wouldst not have known to ask about swords, and thus thou wouldst have to seek him out again if thou dost wish that knowledge. Yeah, like some of this is just what is going on. Dr. Yasman just laughed at this gross nonsense. Some of the people thou shalt meet may be willing to become thy travelling companions. If thou dost wish for a character to become a player in thy party, thou must ask them to join thee. 'Tis most wise to strengthen thy party as rapidly as possible. Up to the 7 companions thou shalt need to complete the game. When thou art through with conversation, then speak the word bye as an accepted means of politely ending the conversation. Be sure to keep a journal of thy travels. We will do this. We will have a little notepad, which we scratch things to talk about, because we will need it. This game is fairly big and fairly ornate, and there's just no way to keep all the information that you're going to get in your head. Many of the clues to solving the quests of Ultima 4 are contained in the various diverse conversations thou might have with the various townsfolk. It would be next to impossible to solve this game without some means of referring back to prior conversations held during play. Be sure to thoroughly explore the cities and towns. Many of the quests within Ultima 4 are contained entirely within individual cities. 'Tis wisest to spend a great deal of time seeking out the answers that lie hidden in each one of the various towns of Britannia before moving on to another. Note: during thy conversations with people in Ultima 4, thou may feel the impulse to show generosity to less fortunate fellows. Thou may do so by saying give. And then you, as in like with some of the other games, where you can give things between your party members, you can give things to people. Thy party is seen here. Oh, are they actually going to... How long is this? Oh, it's 6 pages. We'll get through this and then I'll take the 10-minute break. This is sort of a map of, or a look at what the world might look like. We can see here that there's the wind, which is going... Oh, no, there's wind in this game. I hate it already. Anyway, so there's wind, and it's going south. This over here, it's not going to explain. I don't know if it'll explain it here or if it will explain it in other of the manuals, but there's special information happening here. We've got our party here. We got British, Iolo, and Joffrey. This is much smaller than what it used to be. There used to be 4 lines of text here, and then we used to have the people here, but this is now condensed. We got food here. I don't know what the symbol is. We got gold here. This is us. This is a ship. And then we got a big castle there and a little town there. Thy party is seen here standing on a point of land that juts into the sea. To the north is a castle, while the ship rocks gently in the waves to the northwest. Just above the ship one can see a town. Thy party consists of 3 travellers, British, Iolo, and Joffrey, whose names appear in the party window. Their current status is also therein displayed. British hath 372 hit points, is in good condition. Is he though? Oh, yes, okay. So we've got G over here, and we got P over there, which is poisoned. Iona had 380 hit points and is suffering from poison, and Joffrey had 380 points and is in good condition. The narrow window below indicates that the party has 24 units of food and 1823 gold pieces. The symbol in the center indicates if any spells are currently active. Oh, okay, that's good to know. That's sort of like um our persistent spells check. Okay. Um, Pause to cross a bridge. Thy party can see an approaching band of skeletons to the northeast. At the top of the view window, thou can see the current status of the twin moons, Trammel and Feluca, which is crescent waning for Trammel, and Feluca is in its last quarter. The moon phases are represented as follows. This is so important. In Ultima 3, when we saw this, it was just a bunch of numbers, but now there are actually phases of the moon. This is going to be important for us again because it's going to lead to a very big kind of meta puzzle that we need to be aware of. They are currently checking on the status of the traveler Aiello and his attributes show in a party window. Thou can see that he is a male bard whose condition is good. He is possessed of 13 magic point, 12 strength, 19 dexterity, 13 intelligence. He has attained level 4, currently has 376 hit points, with a hit point maximum of 400, and has 714 experience points. His current weapon is a sling, while he wears cloth armor. Thy party can be seen at the bottom part of the view window, engaged in mortal combat with the 4 pirates, who are aboard their ship. Note that each member of thy party has the opportunity to strike a blow. Their current weapon is displayed below their name. The direction of the wind is indicated at the bottom of the view window. If thou were to win this combat and take possession of the vessel, the whole strength of the ship will be displayed in a narrow window where thy gold would normally be displayed. I don't like this, incidentally. In Ultima 3 and 4, in Ultima's 0 to 1 to, or not 0, 1, 2, and 3, boats were basically invincible. In this game, they're not going to be invincible. So when we lose a boat, we have to find a new boat. It sucks. Magical ability is directly related to the profession and intelligence of thyself and thy traveling companions. Magical strength is twice the intelligence of the spellcaster, with potential modified by profession. The enchantment potential of the various professions is mage, fool, so they can do anything that the spellbooks tell them they can. Ranger 1/2, druid 1/4, tinker 1/4, bard 1/2, fighter none, paladin 1/2, and shepherd none. So if you take their intelligence, right, and you say magical ability is directly related to the profession and intelligence of thyself and thy traveling companions. Magical strength is twice the intelligence of the spellcaster. So if the mage has 10 intelligence, he has 20 magic points because he goes full. But if that same ranger had 10 intelligence, it is 1/2, so it's exactly half of that. So he only gets the 10 points. Druid would again be 3/4. So if we're talking about intelligence of 10 and we did 3/4, he would have 5, and so on and so forth. Direction of movement keys. Thank God it's finally in north, south, west, or east. Okay, runic alphabet. This is important. We're going to have to remember this because this is going to show up everywhere. We've got all the symbols here, and then some of them are special, like we got UV here, and we've got TH, EENG, and EA, and ST. And these are going to be combined. You can see, like, for example, if we wrote east, it would be AEA with a funny T and ST with a funny butterfly shape, and that would be east. You could write it out as E and then like the big M for E, the big F for A, and then S with a lightning symbol, and T for the funny cross. That would take you too long, so you probably want to write east as EAST with the 2 sets of runic characters that we have there. This is important because, as I say, it's going to show up everywhere. If we look at the map, and I'm going to show you the map in a second. I'm taking a 10-minute break, and I'm going to come back and show you the map. But you'll see that when we look at the map that shipped with the game, it's full with this runic alphabet. Alright, I'm going to go get something to drink. I will be right back. It'll be 10 minutes and then we'll carry on playing. Carry on playing. We'll look at the manuals and things because that's kind of what we're doing. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, I am back. So before I show you the map, because that's my next intent, the next thing I want to do, as we go through the box, I want to say how much of a weird, and I've always felt this way, how much of a weird missed opportunity it was that this game is doing so many very big things. One of the things I thought it should also do, it never does this, of course, because it just spells out what the runic alphabet is that it should have actually taught you the runic alphabet throughout the course of the game. I mean, I guess that's a bit of a big ask, but it would be neat if they'd done that. Anyway, so let me get this map up and going so you can see it. Okay. This map, if you can read the runic, is a little spoilery. It's not too spoilery, but it is a little spoilery. But yeah, you can see immediately, this is what I mean. There's runic all over this map, right? And I think the first bit of homework that you'd want to do if you got home out of your car and you sat down and you were like hanging out with us, because this is a class map, you were hanging out with a class map, you might want to write down what these places are and bear in mind that you're going to eventually visit all of them at some point, and you'd want to know kind of what they were called, right? But you can see here that this class map it's A, very cool that it's just like this, but B, it also contains these bits and pieces that you would need to know as you were busy sort of playing the game. There's also a sort of a semi-spoilery thing happening here, where we can see that there are these little circles on the map, and these corresponded to moon phases. We don't know why, but this ties back into this idea of the big meter puzzle that's going to happen in this game. But I love this. I love that it is in the box, and I love that it is sort of showing us kind of what we can expect out of the game if we're willing to put some time in. There's a couple of interesting things that I want to point out. If we look here, for example, there's a little town over there, and here's another little set of hobbles there. And so it is giving us clues as to the kinds of things that we can expect out of this game. This is a very big castle. We can sort of see without doing too much legwork here that this says something like British, right? So there you go. Okay, so let's embark on reading the manuals because that's our next really big step that we need to do. Now, there's kind of an order in which I think it makes sense to read the manuals. The spellbook is probably more flavorful, but we probably want to read the manual first. And the manual is here. Okay, this is not a good manual. The manual I have is scanned from probably one of the collections, which means it doesn't look as interesting as some of the other manuals that we've seen so far. But it's a functional manual and it will guide us through what we're doing in the game. There's another couple of manuals that I want us to read, and we'll go through them one at a time. But this play manual is sort of important to getting going, and I want to read that. Actually, you know what? Hang on. Let me resend that. Let's read the law first, because I think the law is a little bit more interesting. Okay, so we got the history of Britannia as told by Kyle the Younger. Kyle the Younger, we will learn later on, is just the guy who's doing all the manual stuff for Origin at this point. Ah, I keep forgetting. On this specific program, it is left-hand side. Dr. Yasma says, I gotta go, Wolf. Good stream. Have a great rest of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you bringing your folks over here. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. We will shout you out one more time before you go. Thank you for thinking of me. I appreciate it so, so much. Alright, let's read this manual. Oh, again, yeah, we have this amazing sort of artwork that we've come to know and love from the other Ultima manuals. Dr. Yasman says thanks, no problem. The Dark Ages of Britannia is the name given to that long span of time when where the infamous triad of evil stalked the lands and challenged all for the supremacy of the soul. And here, again, we just immediately see that they're retconning Caesarea out of the picture. It just doesn't exist anymore. It's always been Britannia. Didn't you know? The first era of the Dark Ages came to an end with the downfall of the evil wizard Mondane and his many minions, as chronicled in Ultima 1. And they don't even mention Ultima 0, a Calabeth. It's just not here. The lords of the lands were weak and scattered, rendered ineffective by factional wars. It was only through the valiant efforts of an itinerant adventurer that the foul Mondane was tracked to his hidden lair and slain. But a few years of restless peace followed Mondane's downfall. So long had the world shuddered beneath Mondane's yoke that many found it hard to believe he had been really vanquished. In truth, his teachings did not disappear. Mondane's apprentice, Minax, rose to power soon thereafter to challenge the fledgling city-states that were beginning to evolve. The terrors had begun anew. And here, like so, Ultima 2 took place on Earth. I know, you misheard that. It was totally just Britannia. Malax's powers upon maturity greatly exceeded those of her evil mentor. With these powers, she was able to rain wholesale destruction upon the planet, twisting and corrupting everything. Her foul web spread through time itself, ensnaring all who sought to oppose her. Finally, there arose a hero out of legend who dared face Minax in her own fiery castle and destroy her. Thus ended the second era of darkness, as told in Ultima 2. Oh my god, I am never going to remember that left and right are switched here. 20 years of well-earned tranquility ensued, and prosperity favored the land. Then disturbing omens appeared, followed by the mysterious appearance of a fiery island. The tale of the third era of Dark Ages is told by Aolo the Bard in Ultima 3, when Lord British, sovereign of an incipient empire in the land of Caesarea. Oh, they mentioned Caesarea? I'm surprised. But they're going to mention it for one line and then it's going to be gone. Called forth through time and space for heroes of the people to assemble. Four diverse adventurers answered this clarion call. To them fell the yes of the doom of Exodus. Long they laboured on the trail of the mysterious Exodus, through many a deep dungeon which seared their souls this day. So each of the dungeons, well, not all the dungeons, because not all the dungeons were important in Ultima 3. All of the important dungeons left you the mark, and the mark was what eventually got you into the Castle Exodus, and what ended the game. To this day, each member of that team bears the marks of their journey. It's interesting to me that it's only been 20 years and they're still with you. I would think that it would be much longer than that, but sure. To this day, each member of that team bears the marks of their journey. With the aid of the mystical Time Lord, they were successful in bypassing the great Earth Serpent and gaining access to Exodus's Island Fortress. The very bricks of the fortress rose up against them. You fought the floor, and great is the bard's tale of their struggle to reach their mortal foe. I guess it's not a spoiler here to tell you that you fought the floor in Ultima 3, because we were there for that, and it happened to us. Of the final confrontation, not one of them will speak, save to say that the evil is gone from this plane. So passed the third member of the triad of evil, and with this death, so passed the Dark Ages of Britannia. This is a setup that leads us to what we have now. The reason why they don't want to talk about what happened in Exodus is because the end boss of Exodus is very weird and not in keeping with anything that happens before or after. So, I'm not going to spoil it, that's just kind of what happened. If they're not going to spoil it, I'm not going to spoil it. The fact that they're spoiling about the floor here is fine, but the fact that they're not telling you what happened at the end of Exodus is, I think, cause for remaining spoiler-free. Upon the rubble of Cesaria, Lord British was able to unite all the mainland and a few of the islands under his one rule. Oh, they're going to explain how Cesaria became Britain? Interesting. This new empire, Britannia, there you go, brought much sought-after peace and prosperity to its subjects. Many of the ancient pockets of evil were destroyed, so that the only remaining hazard to wayfarers was the occasional stray band of marauding orcs or hill giants. Most of the lands were mapped, although a few unexplored regions still remain. With the triad of evil destroyed, Lord British became known for his dedication to raising the quality of life of his subjects. This is so Lord British in canon is just Richard Garriott, so he's basically patting himself on the back here for a job well done. To assist in this endeavour, 3 mighty structures were raised in distant parts of the realm. One was the Lyceum, wherein lay the great observatory. Another was the Empath Abbey, with its oak groves where wise men and women meditated upon the teachings of the ancients. The third structure was the great castle of the Knights Order of the Silver Serpent. Okay, so these things, these ideas, are just going to keep showing up over and over again. Silver Serpent shows up over and over again, for example. Only the flower of Lord British's chivalry was invited to join this order, which embodied the highest ideals and exemplary bravery. So, again, it's like, I'm so good, I'll join this order. The rest of the land was divided among 8 major towns. Again, 8's very important to this game because of 8-bit, each with its own political faction. Numerous satellite villages also dotted the countryside between towns. In this manner were Lord British's lands organized. Chapter 2, Geography. The final destruction of Exodus rocked the known world. Mountains rose, land masses sank. Most of the surface area of the world became fused together into one large mass. It is over this major continent, now called Britannia, that Lord British rules. Some nearby islands also pay homage to him, while beyond these islands lurk uncharted shoals and rumored pockets of evil. Lord British's magnificent castle is situated in the centre of the continent, overlooking Brittany Bay. So here we have what that spells. It spells Brittany Bay. And if we were canny enough and we knew what we were doing, and we didn't have the runes, we could start constructing a runic alphabet from this. This tall building is the greatest architectural structure of the New Age. Loyal subjects may pay homage to His Majesty and renew fealty whenever they are in the vicinity of his castle. Nearby lies the art centre of Britannia, the town of Britain, where bards weave tales of legendary deeds and serenade visitors. And here we have a picture of one such bard. To the north of the castle British lies the great mountain range known as the Serpent Spine. And again, if we wanted to connect the dots and we didn't have a fully mapped runic alphabet, we could go and figure that out by looking at this, looking for where the Serpent Spine is, and then connecting the dots. The peaks of this range are the highest in all Britannia. During the summer months, a small out-of-the-way pass allows knowledgeable travellers to save much time on their journeys. Beware of the one-eyed Cyclops and fierce two-headed Ettins that inhabit this range. Good to know. Northwest from the mountains begins the vast woods known as the Deep Forest. Many travellers become lost among these tall, majestic trees. If thy feet stray from the beaten path, do not despair. Within the woods lies the beautiful city of Yu, home of the mystic druids. The High Court of Yu judges all the important cases in Britannia and is famed far and wide for the wisdom of the decisions rendered here. So here also is a sort of telling thing that's kind of happening behind our back that we are not aware of. Each town, it did kind of hint at this in the first section. Each town is responsible for its own sort of little thing. The druids are responsible for law, and we'll learn a little bit about some of all of the towns as we go here. Nearby is the spiritual centre of Britannia, the famous Empath Abbey. Within these hallowed walls, wise men and women study the great ancient writings of past masters and meditate upon the great principles that govern the universe. A good meditation, focusing on a proper mantra, This here is important. We will learn that the shape of this game is very much bent around the idea of meditating and mantras. Will sometimes yield valuable visions to those whose patience and powers of concentration are strong. The experience as well with sampling. East of the deep forest lie the holy steppes of Britannia, famous for beautiful horses. The only difficulties a traveller might encounter here are bands of thieving rogues and unfriendly wizards. The high steppes border an interior lake fabled for mysterious disturbances. Beyond the high steppes lies the famous battlefield known as the Bloody Plains, where the last major forces of evil were vanquished. Alas, many of our brave men perished here in the fight for virtue. Be very careful when thou passest through this region. It is whispered that, at some phases of the moon, the undead rise and fight the battle again. I don't know if this will happen, because Ultima 3 wrote checks that its mouth couldn't cache, and it may just be that we have a situation like this here. If we go up to the Bloody Plains and we're there on like a full moon or whatever, and we don't see undead, don't be surprised. They just had a very limited amount of memory that they could work with, and so some of the things that they promise here just will not be delivered in the game. Lost Hope Bay lies to the north of here, with the sturdy town of Minnock perched on its shore. Minnock is home to some of the finest craftsmen in the realm. The tinkers of Minnock are known far and wide for their skill. A time travel will also find a refreshing place to rest at the Wayfarer's Inn. The northeastern tip of Britannia is rather wild. The treacherous marshes, with their noxious vapours that poison the unwary explorer, are home to swarms of large insects and all manner of vile beasts. Okay, so one of the things that's going to be important about this game is we're going to have to traverse these noxious marshes, and we're going to have to do it on foot, and every time we do, they're going to poison us. Now, the problem with this game is that it doesn't reward you with an antidote to poison for a long time, so we're just going to have to be very careful. South of Lord British's castle can be found a large plain, mountains, and a dense forest. On the southern edge of the continent is the magnificent town of Trinsic, from whence come Lord British's finest paladins. The tap in town has some of the best brew around, and the bartender is a great source of current gossip. Be sure to tip him well. So it's teaching us that, like in Ultima's North 1, 2, and 3, you really need to talk to the bartenders occasionally to get game tips and play hints. The claws of the southern tip of Britannia embrace the Cape of Heroes. Slightly to the west lie the Valerian Isles. The walled town of Geelong provides Lord British with the best fighters, and also is the largest inn of the realm, where the service is outstanding. The headquarters for the Order of the Silver Serpent is on an island south of the Cape of Heroes. This wooded fortress was given to the members of the Order by Lord British in recognition of their outstanding service. A visit to Serpent Castle will install within the traveller a true feeling for the ways of chivalry. Off the western shore of Britannia is the island home of the Doughty Rangers. I nearly read it as Dowie. Skara Brae is a beautiful city and spaciously laid out. For those suffering from rare diseases or grievous wounds, a mystical healer resides within those walls. The healer will aid the destitute as readily as the wealthy, expecting no payment, save what the sufferer can afford. This is kind of interesting. Skara Brae is a town that shows up a lot in some of these old games. Like if you went and played, what is it, The Bard's Tale, Skara Brae is a feature in that game too. And in fact, because these games are sort of contemporaneous, some of them will allow you to import game characters from other games. Like you could in The Bard's Tale pull in characters from Ultima 3, I think. And that's very interesting. We don't do that so much anymore, but it's cool that you could in the bad old days. In the northeastern part of Britannia lies Verity Isle, famed as the home of the Lyceum. This pillar of higher learning constitutes the centre for the sharpening of the finest minds in Britannia. The Lyceum's Observatory provides Lord British with valuable information about the course of the heavens and provides a vantage point to watch the happenings within his realm. Oh, he's Manhattan. uh, on the southern end of Verity is situated the fabled town of Moonglow. The Magi of Moonglow are constantly improving their skills, being tireless in the pursuit of greater knowledge of the mystic arts. Within Moonglow, however, can be obtained the finest and mystical reagents. These herbs will help those with magical skills prepare and cast their spells. There's a trick to this. We'll talk about it when we get there. This then is the known realm of Britannia. Several small villages also dotted the landscape, but all are not recorded in the charts of the realm. Some other islands of varying significance hug the shoreline, most of which are uninhabited and barren. The only islands the traveller should be cautious about when exploring are known as the Fens of the Dead. Disembodied wisps, ghosts, long deadlifts, and savage thorns have been reported here. Existing maps are by no means complete. There are said to be other unexplored isles, wherein all manner of monsters and evil beings reside. Flame-breathing dragons, multi-headed hydras, horned devils, fiery lava lizards, and even dreaded Balrons are rumored. Again, they were worried about getting sued by TSR and by the Tolkien estate, so Balrons became their go-to for Balrogs, and rumored to roam the distant shores, somewhere out beyond civilization. Is also reputed to lie the remains of the legendary town of Magensia, which the gods destroyed, for the insufferable pride of those that dwelt there. All of the magnificent marble palaces and gardens were devastated, and the rich, haughty inhabitants reduced to haunting spirits. No one has ever confirmed this legend, so it may just be a fable to frighten the weak of heart and instill humility in those who overvalue their own worth. Sea travel along the coast of the main continent is reasonably safe, although a bold band of pirates has been raiding Britannia of late, terrorizing the populace. Beware, for the pirates take no prisoners. While they're out to sea roam many mythical creatures. The unwary voyager will likely encounter giant squids, nixies, instead of pixies, obviously, poisonous serpents, and mystical seahorses. The ever-present danger of whirlpools and waterspouts makes seafaring a hazardous experience at best. One thing that we'll learn about this version of the game is in U3, Ultima 3, the whirlpool was super important. It was a bridge between your world and another world. In this game, that just doesn't happen. It is hoped that with the next edition of the History of Britannia, travelers will have brought back more information on these unexplored regions, so that the map may be completely filled in. As a final caution for the would-be traveller, beware of the many dungeons and the dark subterranean passages. Chapter 3, Fellowship. Okay, so Ultima 2 made a promise it couldn't deliver on. It had this idea of fellowship. Ultima 3 finally made good on that promise, and Ultima 4 actually starts delivering on that promise in ever more incremental and important ways that shapes the entire landscape of RPGs around Ultima. In Ultima 3, when you got a character, that character had minimums and maximums, or when you made a character, I should say, you didn't get characters because that was a promise that Ultima 3 also made that it couldn't deliver on. When you made a character, the character had maximums and minimums that were fairly straightforward to game because you kind of knew what they were up front. It told you, for example, that a human had so much strength and so much intelligence and so on. And Fuzzy, which is a kind of character that you could create in Ultima 3, had certain stats again in strength and intelligence and so on and so forth. In Ultima 4, this is going to be different again. Everyone will have different stats, and they will grow at different rates as they gain levels. Under Lord British's rule, each of the 8 towns is developed into a cultural center for one of the 8 major professions. In this manner, okay, so now they're going to spell out what's going on here. In this manner, an orderly society has evolved with little friction between the diverse inhabitants. No one is restricted to their town of birth, and one frequently finds people of various professions visiting a particular town. The 8 major professions. You can make a character of any of these 8 professions. Some of them are better suited to playing the game for the first time, and some of them are just really scary. But all of them are basically viable. You could play the game through with any one of these, because what will happen is you'll pick up someone who has better corresponding skills, and then you'll be able to have them carry you. Mage. The Magi of Britannia gather in Moonglow, near the Lyceum, where they can study the ancient mystical scrolls of the library. Now, if we don't make a mage, and I'll explain the character creation process when we eventually get there. It won't be today, it'll probably be somewhere during tomorrow. If we don't make a mage for whatever reason, because there's a couple of ways to go about constructing a character in Ultima 4, and I'll talk about those tomorrow. But if we don't make a mage, one of the things that we're going to want to try and do is get a mage more or less immediately, because mages are so important for this game, because they get you out of a lot of little jams. Magi. The Magi of Britannia gather in Moonglow near the Lyceum, where they can study the ancient mystical scrolls of the library. The strictures of their profession permit Magi to wear only cloth armor and carry either a staff, dagger, or sling. I hate this about this game. I mean, it's true of the last game too, but I hate this about this very AD&D version of the world where, like, mages can only wear specific things, and fighters can only wear specific things, and paladins can only wear specific things. It's tedious because you have to keep on remembering what they can and can't wear. Unconfirmed rumors indicate that the highest adepts have acquired the use of arcane magical weapons. The primary weapon of the mage, of course, is magic. As the mage becomes more advanced, more powerful spells can be woven. Some of the greatest spells have been known to literally shake the earth or raise the dead. And we have here mage, bard, and fighter. It's interesting that they start with mages. They could have done this in alphabetical order, and they did not. Bard. The bards of Britain entertain the people with their wonderful ballads and tales of heroic deeds. Bards not only chronicle the deeds of valor, but perform them as well. The weapon of choice for a bard is the sling, but they may use a crossbow at times. All armor save that of leather is shunned by these minstrels, for they find metal harsh and too noisy for their sensitive ears. Nonsense, but okay. The bard also dabbles in magic and makes a fine companion on a long journey. Fighter. From the town of Jalom hail the mighty fighters. They pass their lives in training and have the use of all weapons and armor, though most prefer the use of the double-edged Britannian sword, a devastating weapon in the hands of a skilled fencer. Fighters have little or no magical talents, for they believe only in the use of arms, and fear that magical training saps the will and concentration of a true warrior. They possess a particular affinity for horses, and are most useful companions on travels to uncharted regions. And yet we see druids and tinkers and paladins. Druids. The druids are fierce fighters, especially when defending their beloved groves. They hold all trees to be sacred, and their town of Yew lies deep within the woods. Druids are also impressive practitioners of the mystic arts, and their knowledge of herbs is without peer. They may fight with different bows, with different types of bows, although their preferred weapon is the mace. The Druidic philosophy forbids the wearing of metal of any kind, so leather is their armor of choice. The Druids' knowledge of the ways of the woodlands makes them invaluable as fellow travelers. Tinker. The Tinkers of Manok are both highly skilled artisans and superb fighters. They are generally suspicious of magic, believing that only handcrafted artifacts possess true value, and thus use it seldomly. A tinker may use any weapon, however, the double-bladed war axe is preferred. Tinkers will use any non-magical armor. A traveling party with a tinker aboard need never fear for repair of any metal or wooden items. Paladin. Again, I don't know for sure if Ultima 4 is cashing a check that it can't deliver on. I don't think that there is weapon breakage in this game, but if there is, I'm going to be upset. Paladin. It is. So I have a couple of pet peeves with video games. A timer is always my biggest pet peeve, but weapon breakage is not very far behind because it's just dumb. Paladin. These great fighters live in the Tower of Trinsic, in the southern part of Britannia. They are expert in all forms of combat and weapon use, and are one of the few professions that will make use of magical chain armor when it is available. Their deep beliefs in the value of good lends strength to their magic, which they wield with a certain flair. Paladins are thus very formidable opponents and highly valued allies. Ranger, off the western shore, the main of let's try it in English. Off the western shore of the mainland lies the fair island of the Rangers. Venturing far from their retreat at Skara Bay, they strive to improve the condition of people throughout the realm. Rangers are well versed in woods lore and fight fiercely with most weapons, but shun all but leather armor. They are also proficient magic users and faultless trackers in any wilderness. Shepherd. Okay, so we've discovered that most of these guys are useful in some capacity. You can make a shepherd. Shepherd is hard mode in this game. It really is, because they just have so little to work with. But if we roll a shepherd, we roll a shepherd. It is uncertain whether shepherds are skilled in any form of warfare or in the mystic arts. However, they are highly valued traveling companions with their humility and their knowledge of the ways of the land. This sentence, the knowledge of the ways of the land, will come to haunt us eventually, because we'll see direct reference to this line in Ultima 9, where things go bad. uh, But Shepherd is sort of hard mode. If you roll a Shepherd, you really want to get a fighter as soon as you can, and you really want to get a mage after that, because their stats just aren't that great. Okay. A traveler of Britannia need not journey alone. In each town one may, indeed one ought to, converse with all the inhabitants. If thy personal philosophy of life is close to that of the town, then thou may ask one of the residents to join the party, if amenable to your invitation. This person will travel with thee, aid thee, and fight with thee. He or she will stay loyal to thee only as long as thou stay true to thy beliefs. If at any time through actions or deeds, thou stray from the path, then thy companions will desert thee to thy fate. Remember, these are free companions, not servants or mercenaries, such is their faith in thee as their leader, that all gold and supplies held by the party is given into thy care for the good of all. Use this trust wisely. I don't know if we're going to be able to do what we were doing in Ultima 3, which is we were passing money down the line to everyone so we can just afford things. I don't know if that's going to be the case in this game. Gravity Gamer says shepherds should have a +4 versus wolves. I agree. Okay, so chapter 4, Mercantile. There is a thriving merchant class in Britannia. Each town and village has its own shops that specialize in local wares and services. The seasoned traveler will discover many delightful and useful items to purchase, as well as a wide variety of places to eat and sleep. Now, I don't know, because I haven't played this game in as I keep mentioning, 30 or so years. How long is it? 40 years, actually. I don't know if Ultima 4's shops work the same as Ultima 3's, where Ultima 3's shops had just everything that you could possibly buy in a given shop. And then off you went. There was only 1 or 2 stores where there were different items. I don't know if Ultima 4 stores are going to work that way. Again, this manual might be making a promise it can't deliver on, but we'll see. Hopefully every store is the same, because otherwise it's going to be a nuisance. The monetary system of Britannia is based on Lord British's heraldic charge. It is a gold coin with a silver serpent cast vermeil upon the gold. There's a word I haven't seen in a super long time. Wowie. Let me see if I remember it correctly. Oh, okay. I had sort of remembered it correctly. It's gilded silver or bronze. In other words, it's been processed in some way. Um, okay. The process is so difficult that the coin has never been successfully counterfeited or debased and valued. Yeah, there we go. It actually gave me context. I should just read the next sentence. This coin has been the foundation of the realm's stability and is universally accepted by merchants. I'm so glad their monetary problems are solved by one gold coin. Coins of the realm are also held to be found in the chests that appear from time to time, and are found below the surface in the dank dungeons. Beware, as most chests have diabolical traps in place to confound thieves. Here is a partial list of some of the more popular shops and their wares. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to learn, and this is going to become ever more true as we play more Ultima games, is that the chests are frustrating because they almost always have some kind of trap on them, and the traps are sometimes deadly. This becomes very bad in Ultima 8. I hope it's not too bad yet, but we'll see. Weapon shop. Here one may purchase the finest in weaponry that blacksmiths can forge. Depending on the skills of the local artisans, a shop might offer the following range of weapons: staff, dagger, sling, mace, axe, sword, bow, crossbow, flaming well, and halberd. The weapon shops also offer liberal trade-ins on used equipment, although if thy axe is greatly notched from battle, do not expect much for it. Okay, that does worry me that there is going to be degradation, and that is going to make me scream. Armory. Fine armor may be purchased in the armories of Britannia. Just an item to keep highwaymen from slipping a dirk into their robes. The local armory may offer any of the following selection: cloth, leather, chain, plate. The armories will likewise offer trade-ins on used armor, although most would not consider them liberal. By the time most fighters get around to seeking improved armor, the old armor is almost completely falling apart, and its principal value is a scrap for the foundries. You know why I don't think we're going to see values for this? Because it didn't indicate them in the reference card. The reference card would have actually pointed out that there are discrete values for breakages and that things would break. So I don't think that's going to be happening. What I think will happen instead is you will buy high and sell low. So if you buy something at 750, it may only sell for 300 gold or whatever, like that. Pub. The subjects of Lord British truly prize their pubs, and it shows in the gracious hospitality to be found in all public houses. Most offer an excellent array of drinks and food for the wayfarer. It is also commonly known that the bartenders are incurable gossips. If asked the right question and offered the right price, rare news may be obtained. Public drunkenness is prohibited throughout the lands of Britannia, so temper thy indulgence with wisdom. There's a jester, because of course we have to have a jester. I don't know if this will be a problem either. If we get real drunk, I don't know if they'll throw us out. Grocery. Little is worse than being far from a town and finding ourselves and one's companions starving to death because the person in charge of the expedition, thou, hast forgotten to buy enough food. Be sure to lay in a plentiful supply at each opportunity. Thy fellow travellers will most certainly be appreciative of thy foresight. We are playing, I hope, under a patch that slows the time down enough to where we don't just bleed food like there's no tomorrow. But if we didn't do anything about the internal timer of the game, that would be a common problem. The healer. Some towns contain these invaluable places of aid, where one may go to be healed when suffering from grievous wounds. Remember to heal thy companions also, for a healthy party ensures survival in the wild regions. The healers are the only ones who may cure victims of the noxious venoms inflicted by the inhuman denizens of the land. N. The numerous inns of Britannia provided the tired travellers with a comfortable night's sleep, which refreshes and revitalizes each character. The character of the inns throughout Britannia varies, as does the price. Herb shop. All practitioners of the mystic arts will search far and wide to locate these rare shops. Within them is to be found the components or reagents, as they are known to enchanters, or spell mixtures. Without these mixtures, no spell may be cast successfully. Due to the rareness of some of the herbs, many are not offered for sale regularly, if at all. The known magical reagents are sulphurous ash, ginseng, garlic, spider silk, blood moss, black pearl, nightshade, and mandragoot. This set of reagents is gonna come up time and time again. Every time I play an Ultima, these will just now be part of the game. Care should be taken to mix the herbs in the correct proportions so as not to waste the valuable ingredients. Guild shop. The Thieves' Guild has been essentially driven out of Britannia, but rumors persist of its existence somewhere in the ocean, perhaps on one of the uncharted islands. Somehow the guild maintains contact with the mainland, perhaps through the brazen pirates. The goods once offered by the guild were quite expensive, but invaluable to the traveller who sought to stray off the beaten path in search of novel experiences. I am going to read to the end of chapter 4, and tomorrow we'll pick up at chapter 5, transportation. I want to just check how much of this manual is left, but we'll see that in a second. These are the main shops in Britannia. A few other places exist that are worthy of note. Shrines. Here the devout of each town may meditate upon their path in life. Each shrine responds to the meditation of a different mantra chant. This here, so important. This is how we are going to get going in this game. Consistency and concentration are the keys to meditation. Enlightenment is attained only through care. The Seer Hawkwind. Residing within Lord British's castle is the loyal Seer Hawkwind. This is a clue as to what we need to do. These two bits here are the fulcrum under which this game sort of rolls and works. You go to a shrine, you say a mantra, you concentrate. If you do that enough, you go see the Seer Hawkwind, and he tells you how you're driving. Residing within Lord British's castle is the loyal Seer Hawkwind. Many aspire to tread the path, but very few find their way. Seek the advice of to the Seer as to thy progress upon the path. He can look into thy heart's heart and read thy progress or failure. Heed his advice, for feet that are strayed may be brought back upon the path. The path they're talking about here is Avatarhood. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, 9:21. Yeah, sure, we need to pause here. So tomorrow we're going to pick up with this chapter on transportation. Let's get out of here. Okay, from this point forward, it's going to take us a while to get through this game. I venture that it's probably going to be a 40-hour or so endeavor, because I haven't played it since 1987 or whatever, and I barely remember what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to be playing Ultima 4 for a long time. There may be a break in the middle of Ultima 4 when the people I mentioned, the folks who are family, are here. I don't know how long that's going to last, but hopefully it's not too long, and I don't forget where we were. That's not going to happen until the end of this month, so I'll tell you about it when it starts happening. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Yasman, for the raid. I appreciate that too. And I will see you all tomorrow. Do remember, from this point onward, there are no more highlights. We're going to be highlighting the one game that we're in, and once we're done with that game, I'm going to remove the highlights, move them over to YouTube, and if you miss a stream, you can always watch it on YouTube from this point going forward. I will start making changes to the About section in the main page of my Twitch to tell you where to go, but that's important because from this point onward, no more highlights. Just bear that in mind. Alright, I will see you all tomorrow. Please have a wonderful evening. please be safe. I shall see you all soon. KBD Gamer says, have a good evening. Oh, KBD Gamer, if you're wondering what was happening for the last week, that is exactly what was happening. I was sitting chained to my computer just backing up all the highlights. And that's why there were no streams, consequently. But yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow. Please have a wonderful evening. Please stay safe. See you all soon. Good night for now.